Today on Matt Walsh Show, there's been a lot of discussion about the brutal assault on white people in Cincinnati over the weekend. I've looked into the story even deeper and found that in Cincinnati, this is a bigger, more systemic problem than most people realize, and we'll discuss that. Also, Zohran Mamdani, who wants to be the next mayor of New York City, has spent the last several days in a compound in Uganda. And Jasmine Crockett gets her first big front-page profile in a major magazine, and it does not go very well for her. Plus, a very popular fitness influencer runs afoul of the leftist outrage mob and responds in exactly the wrong way. All of that and more today on the Matt Walsh Show. All right, so thanks to Bearskin for sponsoring today's show. They sent me their heavy storm rain jacket and hoodie combo, and I decided I haven't been wearing it for the last couple of times we talked about it because it's so boiling hot in the room where I am. But I did want to put it on because I think I look great in this jacket, and anyone can look great in this jacket. That's the great thing about the jacket. And the even better thing is that this is the best 3-in-1 rain jacket on the market. It's the best one I've ever owned. It folds down into its own stash pocket as well. It takes up almost no space in your backpack or pocket. And it's a total game changer in heavy or light rain. This thing's fully waterproof. When I go out fishing in the kayak, I throw this thing in if it looks like it might rain, throw this thing in the kayak with me, bring it with me. And that's because it's got fully taped seams, silicone sealed zips, adjustable cuffs, and the hood is designed to not allow any water near your face. And it's not just any old jacket. It's also got 5 waterproof pockets, so all your gear stays dry, whether you're hiking, fishing, biking, getting caught in a storm, on your morning commute, whatever it is, this is the one crucial rain jacket that you need. And here's the best part. It actually zips into the bearskin hoodie, turning both into a 3-in-1 all-weather system. So your fleece stays warm and dry underneath, and you stay comfortable and dry on the outside. You need to get this jacket. This is my favorite jacket. Not just for, you go outside, you go fishing, you go do anything outdoors, go for a hike. I always bring this jacket. But it's also good to just wear around. It's a good everyday jacket as well. When you order your bearskin rain jacket, you'll get fast delivery and free shipping from within the U.S. So to get yours for 60% off, just text MATT to 36912. Even if you're busy right now, still text MATT to 36912. They'll send you a link so you can lock in your discount for later. So if you go outdoors, rain or shine, as hopefully you do at least sometimes, text MATT to 36912 and get 60% off the most badass rain jacket on the market. By now, we've all seen the footage of a black mob attacking and brutally beating several white people on the streets of Cincinnati during a music festival. One white woman was knocked unconscious by an adult man, causing blood to flow from her mouth while she was lying on the ground. Meanwhile, as one white guy was kicked and dragged away, one of the thugs yelled, "He shouldn't be outside," as if certain races were barred from walking down public streets. Even though most mainstream outlets have attempted to censor the racial dimension of the story, at this point, you'd have to be blind to miss it. Video evidence is difficult to downplay or deny, especially now that some social media platforms aren't relentlessly censored to the same degree that they once were. And therefore, as we discussed yesterday, the police chief in Cincinnati, a bitter old school marm named Terry something or other, has decided to attack the media as well as the people who filmed the violence. She doesn't know what else to do. She can't blame black people. She can't blame the people who actually committed this because that would be racist. She certainly can't accept responsibility for the fact that Cincinnati police were nowhere to be found as downtown Cincinnati transformed into Mogadishu, minus the Black Hawk helicopters. So her response is to wag her finger at everybody else. Short of blaming the people who were nearly pummeled to death, Terry took the single most shameful and unconvincing approach that she possibly could have taken. At the same time, it would be a mistake to place all of the blame at the hands of useless bureaucrats like this police chief. Despite what you're being told, what happened in Cincinnati over the weekend was not solely the result of incompetence by the leadership of the police force, nor was it the product of a verbal altercation or a sudden and unexpected fight or whatever euphemism they're using. The truth about the violence on Saturday, which no one is discussing in any great detail, as far as I can tell, is that politicians and media outlets have spent the last decade doing everything they can to foment anti-white violence and race hatred, specifically in downtown Cincinnati. I mean, this is happening everywhere, of course, but there's a particular version of this problem that's been happening in Cincinnati. The violence was, in that sense, calculated and premeditated. It's a result of a strategy that was implemented intentionally. For years, there has been a coordinated effort to use this music festival as ground zero for basically an open race war. And on Saturday, those efforts paid off. I first noticed what was going on when I looked through some old footage from the Cincinnati Music Festival over the years. A lot of news reports seemed pretty innocuous at first. It was standard fare about the headliners and the large crowds and all the stuff you expect. But then I caught a quick moment in a segment that aired in 2017, which seemed a little bit out of place. Watch.
Happening now, right here at home, thousands of people from all over the country are at Paul Brown Stadium for the Cincinnati Music Festival. 9 on your sides, Ashley Zilka is live there and tells us why this 3-day event draws so many people. Ashley.
Well, the Cincinnati Music Festival is the second largest R&B festival in the entire country, and you can see things are coming off to a great start outside of the stadium.
I like the vendors, get some stuff that just to spend money with the black entrepreneurs. I like to support the city of Cincinnati. They treat us well, and the artists, of course, And then I just like spending money. You can't take it with you.
Now, everyone, of course, is very excited about the headliner, who is Mary J. Blige.
So did you catch that? He says, I like the vendors, I like getting to spend money with the black entrepreneurs. Now, imagine going to, say, Coachella and telling the local news that you're excited to spend money with the white entrepreneurs. You think local news would air that footage outside of an attempt to ruin your life and the lives of everybody you know? I mean, it would either get immediately deleted or it would be a national scandal. Those are the two options. And yet, in this case, when the guy says he's excited to buy from black people at the Cincinnati Music Festival, it was an offhand comment, one that the reporter didn't even comment on. And that suggests, of course, that this was a very common sentiment in Cincinnati. Again, that footage was from 2017, well before the George Floyd hysteria, but it was not a fleeting sentiment. In 2019, black activists went to the local media to announce very clearly that the Cincinnati Music Festival, the same music festival all this violence happened, or would happen years after, would be an opportunity to boycott white businesses while patronizing black-owned businesses. This time, the justification for the boycott supposedly was that a black woman named Tracy Hunter had been mistreated by the justice system, and we'll have more on that narrative in a moment. Therefore, the activists said it was important for everybody at the Cincinnati Music Festival to patronize black-owned businesses and to avoid giving white people their money. And once again, the local news media promoted this uncritically. This is from 2019. Watch this.
It's a big weekend in Cincinnati, and supporters of Tracy Hunter are hoping to capitalize on that.
They say they'll be spreading the word about her case during the Cincinnati Music Festival and encouraging fans to shop at businesses owned by African Americans. Anjanette Levy is live on Fountain Square now, where some festivities are already underway. Anjanette, good evening.
Good evening, Kyle. It seems like it's going to be a really fun time down here. We've got a lot of music, a lot of vendors are already here.
They protested outside the Justice Center last night, calling on people who attend the music festival this weekend to patronize African American businesses only. Ware believes it could ramp up after the festival.
I think they're going to start earmarking places to boycott. I think that's probably coming next. And you don't want to see that happen here in Cincinnati or Hamilton County, but they've made this happen.
Tens of thousands will come to Cincinnati for this weekend's festival, including a large number of African Americans. Tracy Hunter's supporters see this as an opportunity to send a message.
And community members have decided that they are going to request individuals coming in for this festival to be very careful where they spend their money.
Bishop Bobby Hilton wants festival goers to be careful where they spend their money.
That segment begins with the white news anchors talking about how great the Cincinnati Music Festival is. They tell us there's exciting music and food and very cheerful and peppy about it. And then they segue immediately into mob-like threats from black activists and media personalities, which are clearly directed at white people. It's one threat after another. Quote, I think they're going to start earmarking places to boycott. You don't want to see that, but they've made this happen. And then, quote, the community members have decided that they're going to request individuals coming into this festival to be very careful where they spend their money. Let's be clear about this. The fact that news stations in Cincinnati were eager to air these threats, and the fact that no one in Cincinnati's political leadership took action to immediately secure this festival, or even to simply denounce this open anti-white race hatred, amounts to an endorsement of the racial violence and terrorism that inevitably resulted several years later. There is no logical connection whatsoever between the plight of a woman named Tracy Hunter and a mass boycott of white businesses. The only connection is that these people hate white people. That's it. And by the way, who is Tracy Hunter, you might ask? Well, we've actually talked about her before on the show, as it happens. She made history as the first black woman to serve as a judge on Hamilton County's juvenile court. And guess what? She immediately engaged in flagrant corruption as soon as she broke the glass ceiling. The Ohio Supreme Court had to suspend her license to practice law. She intervened in a case of misconduct to help her brother, leading to her conviction of unlawful conduct on the bench. And at sentencing, she was held responsible for, quote, nepotism, improper judicial temperament, tardiness in rendering decisions, and denying public access to her court. And then after her sentencing, she went limp and had to be dragged out of the courthouse. Keep in mind, all this happened before this boycott. Watch.
Seconds after Judge Patrick Dinkelhocker affirmed Tracy Hunter's jail sentence, his courtroom erupted in chaos.
3, you are to do 6 months in the Hamilton County Justice Center, credit 1 day. Mr. and Ms. Deputies can take her away.
A woman who seemed to run to Hunter's defense was quickly taken into custody. Meanwhile, Hunter fell limp in the arms of a deputy who ended up dragging the former juvenile court judge away from her outraged supporters.
This is the person, an obviously corrupt judge, that they used as a justification to punish all of the white people in downtown Cincinnati during this music festival. This was the pretext. And it's a complete and total farce. And again, the local media in Cincinnati didn't simply report on this boycott in the name of this corrupt judge. They encouraged it. They provided a list on their website of all the black-owned businesses at the Cincinnati Music Festival so that people would know how to avoid the white businesses. And the government of Cincinnati posted a list also. Watch.
Downtown is really bustling tonight.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, Reds game, big concert at US Bank Arena, and the biggest event of all, the Cincinnati Music Festival at Paul Brown Stadium.
But for most of the week, we've been hearing about boycotts and protests.
Supporters are encouraging travelers to boycott downtown restaurants and businesses on a weekend that usually brings in millions for the city.
We understand the community and we're very sensitive to how the community feels. So we're working with the city of Cincinnati. But we haven't heard anything that's disruptive, but we're just here to have a good time.
Supporters say they will be on Fountain Square tomorrow.
It's a happy weekend because anytime you get together, it becomes happy.
Supporters are encouraging travelers to patronize black-owned businesses. Now, at the City of Cincinnati website, there is a directory of those businesses. We also have a link for you at local12.com.
Now, you just cannot spend the better part of a decade telling black people in Cincinnati at a music festival that they need to boycott white people and that white people are the source of their problems, and then act shocked when a mob brutally beats and nearly murders several white people in the street at that very same music festival. Instead, you are complicit in those beatings. Every single one of these politicians and news outlets are complicit. Actually, to be more precise, this has been going on for a lot longer than the past decade. Here's a report from Cincinnati.com describing a major controversy at this Cincinnati Music Festival back in 2018, as well as the history of the festival. Quote, when a downtown bar announced on Facebook it would close Friday and Saturday for renovations, the post was flooded with accusations of racism because the closure coincided with the Cincinnati Music Festival. Many said the renovation plans were a lie, an excuse not to serve the mainly black clientele drawn to the city for the festival. At the very least, the situation at Knockback Nats is a reminder of the racism that has surrounded the festival for decades. In 1981, a sales manager at the Westin Hotel distributed an internal memo to hotel executives saying that employees can expect loud guests, drug dealing, and poor tipping during the 20th annual Cool Jazz Festival. In 2000, protesters picketed 8 downtown restaurants that closed for the weekend in late July during 2 high-profile events that draw tens of thousands of African Americans to Cincinnati, including the Coors Light Jazz Festival, close quote. So in other words, going back to the 1980s, local businesses have tried to defend themselves against the obnoxious criminal behavior of the attendees at this festival. And also going back to the 1980s, there has been this racial This has been a heavily racialized event, stoking anti-white resentment, which that's the detail that I think a lot of people don't realize. You hear, oh, this happened at a music festival, it's random. This is not random. It's been building up to this for years and years and years. Now, when you think about these businesses, hopefully you're catching the irony here. According to these activists, white-owned businesses at the Cincinnati Music Festival should be boycotted because white people are bad or whatever. But if white-owned businesses don't open during the Cincinnati Music Festival so that they can then be boycotted, they're racist. So put another way, how dare you white racists shut down your businesses? We want you to keep your business open so that we can proceed to not patronize them. That's known as a catch-22 in the business. Basically, white people are awful and racist no matter what they do. And these activists, as always, are not held to any standard of decency or logic. In fact, during these festivals, as you heard, the hotels in Cincinnati aren't even allowed to warn their staff of what's coming. And as recently as 2018, when a bar decided to tear up the floor and repair their kitchen during the music festival, they were smeared as bigots. Even though the renovations at this bar called Knockback Nats were clearly ongoing, the mob still claimed that the renovations were only scheduled during the festival so that the owners could avoid serving the crowd. A crowd that, again, doesn't want to go there anyway because they're supposed to be boycotting white businesses and only patronizing black businesses. But here's the thing. Even if it's true that this business shut down, and used the renovation as a pretext, and really they just didn't want to be open during this event, it's a completely reasonable decision. It has nothing to do with bigotry. It's rational for a business to decide that a particular festival causes so many problems so consistently that it's not worth the potential profit. And apparently this has been the norm for many years in Cincinnati. It was evidently the norm this year as well. Mike Cernovich reported that, quote, Jazz Festival weekend in Cincinnati, a local tells me, is so disgusting with low tips and fights that bars didn't open during Jazz Fest. City officials threatened to pull the liquor licenses of these bars on racism grounds. Now think about how insane this is. It takes a lot of downside before a business will turn down a large number of customers. Businesses generally want to make money. Okay, they don't care who they're making it from. They don't care the color of your skin. The only time they would turn that down is if the downsides are extraordinary. But apparently those downsides are indeed extraordinary at the Cincinnati Music Festival. And they're extraordinary in no small part because the festival has been used as a mechanism for open racial hatred for years. But instead of considering their own role in forcing these businesses to shut down, Cincinnati's leaders have chosen to terrorize white people even further. In fact, Cincinnati's leaders aren't simply terrorizing random white people going for a walk downtown. They're also systematically discriminating against white men in the police force, which might explain why the department is so incompetent that it can't stop a violent mob in the middle of the city from beating random white people with impunity. This is from local Cincinnati station WCPO from just a couple of months ago. Quote, 4 Cincinnati police officers are suing the city of Cincinnati and the police chief of the Cincinnati Police Department, claiming they were discriminated against for being white males. The federal lawsuit was filed Monday and claims the 4 officers were denied opportunities for preferred assignments and weren't promoted because of their race and gender. The lawsuit claims that police chief Teresa, whatever her last name is, gave preferred assignments more often to officers who are minorities or women. It also lists 9 examples of women or minorities who were lower on the promotions list but were promoted over the officers who filed the lawsuit. So according to the complaint, of the police department's minority lieutenants, 79% received preferred assignments. Of the female lieutenants, 89% were given preferred assignments. And yet of the white male lieutenants, only 44% were given preferred assignments. Additionally, back in 2021, a separate lawsuit was filed alleging the department discriminated against white males. The city ultimately settled with the lieutenant who filed that suit for $75,000. So you have an anti-white police department that's clearly discriminating against white males. You have city officials and media outlets who have spent decades claiming that white people are so shameful and disgusting that you shouldn't even buy a hot dog from them. And then after the predictable anti-white violence takes place on camera, this is how the police chief responded.
Called 911. Another point I want to make about this, you have heard me for over a year now talk about holding our juveniles in this city accountable for their behavior and trying to hold their parents accountable for knowing how their kids are behaving. What should we expect from our youth if this is the kind of adult behavior that is setting an example for them? That is unacceptable by the adults in our community.
Well, she's right about one thing. The black attackers in that mob at the Cincinnati Music Festival certainly took their cue from malicious and profoundly evil people in positions of authority, people who went out of their way to ensure that white people would be violently brutalized for the crime of being outside. But those malicious actors are not on YouTube or Fox News. They're running the city of Cincinnati, and they've been running it for some time. And now, as of Saturday, the inevitable result of their anti-white race hatred, the result they badly wanted for a long time, has finally been captured on video. They're too cowardly to admit it, but they've simply left too much evidence for too long about their intentions. Now, if there's a reason why the DOJ hasn't already moved into Cincinnati to shut down the government and prosecute these people, I haven't heard it. If Barack Obama can force dozens of police departments to confess to invented acts of systemic racism and surrender their budget to the permanent oversight of the federal government, then the Trump administration can and should do the same thing to Cincinnati, which has clearly been engaging in a pattern of actual systemic anti-white discrimination and resentment for generations. Real human rights violations are happening. White people, like every other race, are entitled to civil liberties. But until the leaders of the government of Cincinnati are hauled to federal prison, we can assume that civil liberties will remain suspended in the city. Prepare your travel plans accordingly. Avoid Cincinnati and every other city like it. And no, keeping away from these hellholes does not mean that you're a bigot. It means you've listened to what the government and the activists have been saying for many, many years. And you've finally gotten the message loud and clear. Now let's get to our 5 headlines. You know, I was shocked to learn that the liver is actually the second largest organ in the body, handles over 500 different functions. Yeah, we barely think about it. Here's the thing, though. Over 30% of Americans have a sluggish liver, and most of us don't even know until it's too late. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Dose for Your Liver. This is not just another supplement. It's a science-backed formula that was specifically created to cleanse your liver of unwanted elements while supporting digestion and keeping your body's natural filter running smoothly. What really impressed me were the clinical trials. In a double-blind, placebo-controlled study, Dose for Your Liver actually lowered liver enzyme levels by 50% in over 86% of participants. And get this, one shot is equivalent to 17 shots of turmeric juice. When you stick with Dose over time, you can experience some incredible benefits: more energy, better digestion, reduced bloating, healthier liver enzyme function, less brain fog, even better sleep. Plus, it's gluten-free, dairy-free, sugar-free, and as you know, most important to me of all is that it is vegan. Save 25% on your first month of subscription by going to dosedaily.co/Walsh or entering Walsh at checkout. That's dosedaily.co/Walsh for 25% off your first month subscription. I want to go back to a headline from Monday night in the wake of the shooting in New York City. Here's the headline from the New York Post. NYC mayoral frontrunner Zohran Mamdani addresses Midtown mass shooting from Uganda compound. The article says Democratic nominee for mayor Zohran Mamdani addressed the mass shooting at a Park Avenue office building while at his family's private compound in Uganda, where he's celebrating his wedding. Mamdani wrote, "I'm heartbroken to learn of the horrific shooting in Midtown, and I'm holding the victims, their families, and NYPD officers in critical condition in my thoughts." So the focus of the article is on the shooting, which makes sense, but I want to know more also about this Ugandan compound. After all, this guy is very likely to be the next mayor of our largest and most important city. What's he doing in a Ugandan compound? I mean, that's a little disconcerting, isn't it? The amount of time that I want any American elected official to spend in a Ugandan compound is 0 minutes of their entire lives. That's the amount of time I'd like to see you spend in a Ugandan compound. But so let's find out more about this. The Telegraph has some more on it. Zohran Mamdani, the Democratic Socialist, reportedly held a lavish wedding celebration at a private compound in Uganda. The New York mayoral hopeful is said to have hosted a party last weekend at his parents' property in the billionaire neighborhood of Buziga Hill, outside of the capital city of Kampala. Mr. Mamdani told social media followers he and his wife were heading to his home country to celebrate their recent nuptials with his family. His parents' home, set on 2 acres of land, was guarded by masked security guards with phone jamming signals set up to ensure complete privacy at the event. So this is really perfect in so many ways. And let's count them, shall we? Let's count the ways, all the things that makes this a perfect story. We can begin with the fact that Mamdani is a socialist who preaches about wealth inequality. Meanwhile, his family owns a compound in one of the richest areas of Uganda, surrounded by just dirt poverty. He's partying it up in his private compound while the average Ugandan has an income of like $200 a month. And even that's overstating it because the average income is inflated by the kinds of people who live in Mamdani's neighborhood. In reality, many Ugandans are living many of them are still living in mud huts with thatched roofs. The kind of poverty that we don't see in this country. It doesn't exist in this country. But it exists in Uganda. And you often hear leftists in this country claim that, you hear them say there's no such thing as an honest millionaire or an honest billionaire. There's no honest way. So if someone's rich and they say, hey, I earned this honestly. I earned an honest living. What they'll say is, well, that's not possible. That's a contradiction in terms. Because if you're rich, it means that you exploited other people. That's the only way that you could become rich. And that's what they claim. It's nonsense, of course. In this country, that claim is nonsense. In our advanced first world country, it is quite possible for an honest person to become quite rich without ever exploiting anyone or harming anyone in any way. Now, there are plenty of people who are rich and have harmed people. There are people who aren't rich and harm people. But it is perfectly possible to become very rich, very successful, without ever exploiting anyone, without ever hurting anybody. And that's the case in this country. Now, but going back to the irony is that in a third world country, there's actually some truth to that claim. Third world countries like Uganda are systemically corrupt. That's part of the reason why they are third world countries. And if you're a rich person then in a third world country, the chances are, maybe not absolute, but they're very high, that you are corrupt, that you're a crook. I mean, the most corrupt, crooked people you'll find on the planet are the richest people in third world countries. Income inequality, so-called, in third world countries is much more stark because you have most people in the country, or a lot of people in a third world country, who are still living as though it's the year 600. And then you have an extremely small portion of people who are living in luxury. There's an imbalance there that is much more drastic than what you find in this country. And yet again, the leftists, people like Mamdani, they'll talk about income inequality. They only ever apply that phrase, that idea, to the United States and other white Western countries. They'll never apply it to Uganda, even though it is much more relevant there. Now, in this country, yeah, you have income inequality. That will always exist. It should exist because people do different things. They have different levels of success. Incomes will be different. That's just always going to be the case. But in this country, you might have one family earning 150 grand a year, and then you could have another family who's living in another town not too far away who's earning $3 million a year, let's say. And in that case, the latter has an income many times greater than the former. But the former, they might have their own, I'm sure they do have their own financial hardships, but they're not living in a one-room hut made out of cow dung, which they share with 9 kids and 3 cows. The former still lives very comfortably and even luxuriously compared to most of the people in Uganda. Whereas, again, in Uganda, you'll have people like Mamdani's family who are living in modern society, living in luxury, and they're just surrounded by unbelievable poverty, and very often doing nothing at all to alleviate that. Because that falls to us, right? That also falls to us. Who's supposed to help the poor people in Uganda? Not the rich people in Uganda. No, it's supposed to be us somehow. It's supposed to be you. That's your responsibility. So all that to say, all the hand-wringing that you hear from people like Mamdani about wealth disparities applies much more to rich people in the country that he's from and that he still has allegiance to than it does to this. And it gets better because, like any other rich person in a third world country, he has private armed security surrounding his compound. And so the irony there, the hypocrisy there is very obvious. This is somebody who wants to defund the police. He wants to abolish the Second Amendment. Anyway, when it comes to protecting his family's estate in Uganda, he makes use of guns and men who are paid to carry them. So the ironies and hypocrisies are boundless with this story. And yet all of that is almost beside the point. Almost. Because the most salient thing about Mamdani's wealthy Ugandan compound is not that it's wealthy or that it's a compound, but that it is Ugandan. And I'm of the opinion that nobody with a Ugandan compound should hold elected office at any level in the United States. If you have a private compound in any foreign country, I don't think you should hold elected office in the United States. And I think that is just a very rational, common sense idea if you actually value this country. If your attachment to a foreign country is so deep that your family has a compound there that you like to spend time in and celebrate your wedding there, then that should exclude you from holding public office in our country. You can hold public office in Uganda. Go ahead. The place you still call home. But in this country, and I think this is how most Americans feel, and increasingly are not shy about saying it and not ashamed to say it, and we shouldn't be, that we care about our own country. And if you want to represent us or lead us at any level, then you need to make it very clear that you prioritize this country above all others, that your loyalty is to this country and none other. Okay, well, we need to have actual Americans in elected office. That's the first thing. But that alone won't solve all of our problems, because even if you have actual Americans in elected office, there are plenty of actual Americans who are still in elected office and are also terrible. You're still stuck with people like Jasmine Crockett, for example. And there's a whole profile on Jasmine Crockett in The Atlantic. A profile which has been a source of some controversy, at least on Jasmine Crockett's team, because she volunteered to be a part of this profile, but then tried to, as we'll see, she tried to withdraw her consent because she didn't like how it was turning out. And how it was turning out is that, well, the profile was actually trying to discover what kind of person this is, which is the whole point of a profile. Now, I didn't read the whole thing myself. There's only so much mental abuse I can take. But here's a summary from the Daily Mail of this profile in The Atlantic. Democratic Representative Jasmine Crockett's obsession with controlling her image, monster ego, and shabby treatment of staff has been exposed by a new profile. The hard-left Texas Congresswoman, 44, has been scolding colleagues over scheduling and food, was seen scolding colleagues over scheduling and food by the Atlantic journalist Elaine Godfrey, who profiled her for the prestigious magazine. Godfrey also remarked on Crockett's obsession with her own image and cuttingly revealed that the lawmaker's phone lock screen is a picture of Crockett herself. The journalist was granted access to Crockett for her profile, only to have it unceremoniously revoked after she contacted other lawmakers to ask their thoughts on the rising star Democrat. Those secondary interviews are a standard procedure for such profiles, but Crockett was outraged. And then it goes on. Before losing access, the Atlantic's writer also got to see Crockett interacting with her staff in what she described as a brusque manner. Crockett reportedly called an aide to scold him for an unclear note on her schedule and told another assistant a bag of food they had bought her looked like crap. Godfrey has also revealed Crockett is highly conscious of her self-presentation. During many of our conversations, Crockett wore acrylic nails painted with the word resist and a set of heavy lashes over her brown eyes. The lock screen on her phone is a headshot of herself. Throughout the Atlantic's piece, Crockett lamented that her Democrat colleagues shut her out of the top position on the House Oversight Committee, even though she has the most social media followers. She said, quote, "It's like there's one clear person in the race that has the largest social media following." So that's just a little bit of the profile. And I have to tell you, we joke about Jasmine Crockett a lot because she's a clown. She's an unserious person. She's a joke of a human being. She's unintentionally hilarious, a comedic figure in many ways. Again, unintentionally. She's about as smart as a potato. She might as well be a potato. I mean, the voters in the 30th congressional district in Texas may as well have voted for an actual potato. So there's a lot to laugh about, but I also find her to be a tragic, like depressing figure. And it's kind of the weirdest sensation because when I read about her, I see a clip of her, I find her very funny, but I'm also filled with, at the same time, with this deep despair. So it's strange in that way. Because while being a clown, the fact is that this person was elected. A majority of voters in, I think that's Dallas, the 30th congressional district in Texas, a majority of voters in a major American city saw this obnoxious potato and said, yeah, I think that's it. I think she's the obnoxious, loud, half-sentient potato with fake eyelashes. Let's vote for her. Let's make her, yeah. A majority of voters made that decision. And they'll probably do it again. They'll probably promote her, actually, because she's likely going to run for Senate. Right now, she has a comfortable lead in the polls. She's sitting at 35%. The next closest is sitting at 20%. And this is a woman who has never done anything for her constituents at all. Not a single thing. She's delivered nothing for them. Not even tried. Instead, she spent all of her time trying to generate viral clicks on social media for herself. That's the only thing she cares about. Which is why when she's trying to explain why she should be, she should have this ranking position in a committee, the only reason she can give is that I have the most social media followers. And because that's all she cares about is the viral attention. And she gets that attention by carrying on like a Spirit Airlines customer, just being loud and dumb and incredibly self-involved. And voters have looked at that and said, oh yeah, I need more of that. Give me some more of that. Yes, please make the U.S. Senate resemble a Spirit Airlines flight even more. That's what voters in her state, Democrats anyway, in her district are saying. So we have problems in this country that just cannot be fixed by voting. They would be fixed by disenfranchising millions of people. There are millions of people who are not suited, not fit to have any say whatsoever in how this country is run or who runs it. Which is why, I've been talking about this for years. It's one of the third rails. And I can see why. I can see why, especially politicians aren't going to go out and come out against the right the right to vote, because we consider it a sacrosanct thing. And I think it is sacrosanct, which is all the more reason why we should not grant that right to everybody. There are lots of people who are just not suited for it, not fit for it. Nearly every problem in this country, if we drastically raise the bar for who is allowed to vote, I'm not saying you exclude people arbitrarily or anything like that. You just raise the bar. Raise the bar for who is allowed to vote. If you're an American citizen, you can potentially vote. That's the first thing. And that already is a higher bar than we currently have. So that's number one. Got to be an American citizen. And any American citizen can potentially vote. But then we have this bar here. You got to be able to clear that bar. And I've talked many times about what that bar would be. Just like demonstrating a basic understanding of how our system works, demonstrating that you have some basic knowledge of current events and the issues that you're voting on, demonstrating that you have skin in the game, that you're a functioning adult contributing member of society, things like this. And if we did that, nearly every problem in this country could be fixed in like a week. Really, if we did that. But we're not going to. That's not going to happen. So what then? Well, it means that we have problems that voting won't fix, problems that allow people like this to get elected. And of all the embarrassing revelations about Jasmine Crockett in this profile, none of them are actually revelatory. They're not surprising. But the one that's most profound is the fact that her phone lock screen is a headshot of herself. I mean, it may seem like a small thing, but there are small things in life. There are small things you can do. There are small things that you might notice about someone that tell you everything you need to know. You can, they say, don't judge a book by its cover. Actually, you can. And depending on what you see on the cover. And if the cover of their phone is a picture of themselves, that everything you could ever need to know about them, you don't need to talk to them. You don't need to get to know them. Everything you need to know is contained in that one simple fact. That this woman went into her phone, scrolled through the presumably hundreds of photos of herself, and selected one of those to be her phone lock screen. Not a photo of a loved one, a friend, not a photo of a beautiful sunrise or a panoramic view from a recent vacation, not even a photo of a dog or a cat. That would be preferable to what she chose, which is a photo of herself. So it's cartoonish. I mean, this woman is like a cartoon. I swear she wasn't born. She was animated. This is literally the kind of thing that a comically vain character in a cartoon would do. But this is her real life. And people vote for that. Because let's face it, you have a lot of people in this country who are just very stupid. I mean, if you cast a ballot for Jasmine Crockett, I'm not even sure that stupid covers it. Are you even conscious? Are you self-aware? Are you fully sentient? I don't say that as a joke. I've actually started wondering about this. I kind of think about this a lot. I saw someone making this point recently in response to a clip from that show. What's that show called? Financial Audit on YouTube. And I never watched a full episode of it, but I see these clips that pop up. And I'll admit that the clips are kind of fascinating because the host, I think his name's Caleb, who gives financial advice to these people who come to him. And these are people who are just totally dysfunctional. So the show seems to be kind of a cross between Jerry Springer and Dave Ramsey. It's a brilliant concept. And it's a great way to generate content. I mean, it's a content generating machine. So you see these clips and you know, you got someone who they earn $70,000 a year or whatever. They've racked up 50 grand in debt somehow. And still, like, they're spending half their paycheck on Labubu dolls and vacations. I saw one the other day. A woman's in a tight financial spot. She's got debt, bills. She gets a $10,000 tax refund. Goes and spends every dime of it on a vacation. Saves none of it, puts none of it to her debt, puts none of it to her bills. Every single last dime she spends immediately. And then she comes to this financial expert and says, I don't know, what's going on here? How do I solve this? And you see in these clips that Caleb tries to talk to them and reason with them, but there's just nothing there. It's like there are these drones, these totally vapid, empty people who, you know, you're talking to them and you're saying, well, why did you spend half your paycheck on a Labubu doll? Don't do that. But you got a $10,000 refund, you got debt. Don't spend it all right away. You can't, if you want to get out of your debt, you can't do that. And he's trying to explain it to these people and increasingly kind of losing his mind while they're sitting there like blank expression, like, huh? Well, yeah, I don't know. Why not? So, anyway, these are also the Jasmine Crockett voters, right? There's like these kinds of people. And not just, I'm using Jasmine Crockett as an example. There's a lot of politicians just like her. And it's because of people like this that those kinds of people end up in positions of power. I don't know. I think the problem is worse now than it's ever been. This problem of people being, you know, empty, vapid, nothing going on, like barely even aware of who they are or where they are. And I think it's worse than it's ever been because you have the education system, which is a total failure. You have the media, Hollywood, the internet, et cetera, and so on, that have worked for generations to lobotomize people and numb their minds and turn them into drones. The pharmaceutical company, all this kind of stuff, pharmaceutical industry, the drugs people are taking, all of it, turning their minds into mush and turning them into drones, into vassals who are barely, I think, are like barely even conscious. So it's a problem that's getting worse, but it's also always been. I mean, this dichotomy has always existed. Our founders recognized that. which is why it was never intended for the right to vote to be something that's granted to every single person as long as they're a certain age, where there's no other requirements. That was never the idea. And when you do that, when you take someone, when you watch Financial Audit and you see the woman who spent thousands of dollars on I don't even know what Labubu dolls are, by the way. I just saw this in a clip. But you see the woman who's in desperate financial straits and spent all this money on Labubu dolls, and you see that, and you think, well, this person is allowed to vote. She can vote. Her vote counts the same as mine. I'm sitting here legitimately wondering, to what level is she even a conscious person? And she can vote. Well, when you reach a critical mass of people like that who are allowed to vote, it just kills your country. Your country's done. No country can survive that. No, you cannot survive having people like that who can decide the direction of the country. So you raise the bar, make people demonstrate some amount of capability, of aptitude before they're allowed to take part in these kinds of decisions. You either do that or, your country dies. I mean, that's really the two options. So there's a cheerful thought for you. What if you could delay your next 2 mortgage payments? That's right. Imagine putting those 2 payments in your pocket and finally enjoying just a little bit of breathing room. It's possible when you call American Financing today. If you're feeling stretched by everyday expenses, groceries, gas bills, all that piling up, well, you're not alone. Most Americans are putting those expenses on credit cards, and there doesn't seem to be a way out. American Financing can show you how to use your home's equity to pay off that debt. You need to call American Financing today before you get to a point where you can't make those payments. Their salary-based mortgage consultants are helping homeowners just like you restructure their loans and consolidate debt, all without upfront fees. And their customers are saving an average of $800 a month. That's like a $10,000 raise. It's fast, it's simple, and it could save your budget this summer. Call now before it's too late. 866-569-4711. That's 866-569-4711, or visit americanfinancing.net/Walsh. This episode is brought to you by Pocket Hose, the world's #1 expandable hose. If you ever struggle with traditional garden hoses that constantly kink and crease right at the spigot connection, you'll appreciate the innovative design of the Pocket Hose copper head with pocket pivot. This clever swivel mechanism rotates a full 360 degrees, ensuring uninterrupted water flow and giving you complete freedom to move around your entire property without fighting against stubborn hose tangles. Whether you're watering flower beds on one side of your house or reaching planters around back, the smooth pivot action makes watering effortless and enjoyable. When your gardening tasks are complete, this remarkable hose offers another surprise. It automatically shrinks back down to a compact pocket-sized coil. It's incredibly easy to handle and store away neatly, which makes my yard work a whole lot easier. No more lugging around a tangled mess. Built with rust-proof materials and anti-burst technology, the super lightweight yet ultra-durable Pocket Hose Copperhead is engineered to withstand years of regular use, which is why the manufacturer confidently backs it with a comprehensive 10-year warranty for your complete peace of mind. The brand new Pocket Hose Copperhead with a pocket pivot is a total game changer for you and your yard. For a limited time, my listeners can get a free pocket pivot and their 10-pattern sprayer with the purchase of any size Copperhead hose. Just text Walsh to 64,000. That's Walsh to 64,000 for your 2 free gifts with purchase. Walsh to 64,000. Message and data rates may apply. See terms for details. This month, your Daily Wire Plus membership gives you more than ever. You get ad-free, uncensored shows from the most trusted voices of conservative media. You also get entertainment that actually matters, like What is a Woman and Am I Racist, and our brand new documentary, Journey to the UFC. On August 13th, The Secret Vatican Files premieres exclusively to members. Plus, Isabel Brown's new show launches right here this fall. Already a member? Gift a full year of Daily Wire Plus for 40% off with code JULY. Go to dailywire.com to join or gift today. Now let's get to our daily cancellation. For our daily cancellation, today we have a well-known fitness influencer who goes by the name Joey Swoll. Now, you may know Mr. Swoll as the guy who does all those TikTok videos where he lectures people for being rude or inappropriate in the gym. Probably seen these videos pop up. Here's one just for reference.
please, please, please don't do this nonsense at the gym. You're there to work out, not film TikTok dance videos. And listen, I'm all for dancing between sets or on the treadmill. Love to see people do it. I do it myself. But you don't do it standing directly next to somebody that's working out just so you can distract them to get a reaction so you can film it and post it on social media for likes and attention.
Now, he's right, of course. You should not film dancing videos at the gym while people are trying to work out. Do we need a Joey Swoll video to, do we need him to make a response to every single video of someone being inappropriate at the gym just so that he can tell us again for the 10 millionth time that we should not be inappropriate at the gym? No, we probably don't need that, but it's harmless content for the most part, and it's helped Joey Swoll gain a very large following on social media. Although large followings, as those of us with large followings inevitably discover, are a double-edged sword. And Joey learned that lesson this past week. A few days ago, Joey posted a simple, seemingly innocuous tribute to one of his personal heroes, Hulk Hogan. After the wrestling icon died, Joey tweeted this: "R.I.P. to a legend and one of my inspirations to start working out." So that's it. That's all he said. Lots of people were posting tributes to Hulk Hogan. This was just one in a sea of them. Nothing especially notable about it, you might think, as a rational and normal person. However, over on the left, where rational and normal people do not reside, Joey Swoll's brief one-sentence Hulk Hogan eulogy was an outrage. They exploded in anger, attacking Joey, accusing him of racism. They claim that Hulk Hogan said and did racist stuff in the past, which means that anyone who praises him or mourns his death is also racist. Now, I'll admit, I don't even know what specifically Hulk Hogan supposedly did or said that upset them so much. I couldn't possibly care less. I didn't even look it up because I don't care. It doesn't matter. All I know is that the people crying about it today and claiming that you're a racist if you pay the man tribute after his death are ridiculous clowns and should not be taken seriously. All you can do with such people is ignore and disregard them or mock and belittle them and then ignore them. Unfortunately, after only a few hours of backlash, Joey Swoll decided that he had to explain himself. And here was his first attempt.
Listen, I can post Hulk Hogan if I want to. Just because somebody makes a mistake in their life doesn't mean that they haven't done good things. I don't know what he did, and he said something 20 years ago and apologized for it. If you're going to attack me, you better go after the colored athletes and the people that are black and minority that went and posted him as well. Okay, the man was nice to me. He made a mistake. I'm not God. People make mistakes in life. If you got a problem with that, look at yourself. There's not one single person in here that hasn't made a mistake in their life, so...
Well, speaking of making mistakes, Joey made a big one by posting that. He's trying to explain himself. He's trying to justify himself. He's trying to reason with the outrage mob. But the outrage mob, because it is a mob, cannot be reasoned with. Your explanations will always fall on deaf ears. They did in this case. Joey's attempt to defend his post only inflamed the mob even more. They continued to screech and cry and scold him for another 24 hours or so. And that was apparently all that poor Joey could take. He waved the white flag, crawled into a fetal position, and posted this. Prepare yourself for the overwhelming cringe here. Watch.
I owe my followers, my community, and all of social media an apology. A few days ago, I reposted an old video of me in the gym wearing a Hulk Hogan Halloween costume on the day that he passed. Last night in my live stream, a lot of people expressed how upset and frustrated they were with me that I had posted that. Instead of listening and understanding like I should have, I became defensive and said that I was posting to celebrate the wrestling icon, the person that so many of us looked up to as kids that we grew up with, that made us tear our shirts and take our vitamins and say our prayers. I didn't know to the extent of all the horrible things that he had done. Since last night, I have done a lot of research, talked to a few people, and learned all of the horrible, horrible things that that man has done, which is way more than just making a mistake and being human. So because of that, I have taken the videos down, and I apologize to anybody that I offended. I am sorry. Also, during last night's live stream, I used the word colored instead of saying person of color, which is a very outdated, very offensive term. A few moments later, somebody educated me and told me that it wasn't okay to use that, which I immediately apologized to everyone and said I would never do that again. So once again, to anybody that I offended, I am sorry. You know, my whole page, my whole brand is based on holding people accountable and doing better. I would be a hypocrite if I didn't hold myself to the same standards. I am human. I am still growing. I am still learning. And I promise all of you, I will do better.
That was tough to sit through. It's never easy to watch a man castrate himself in public, and that is what Joey Swoll just did. Keep in mind that Hulk Hogan was Joey's childhood hero. He was also the man, someone that Joey apparently knew personally, or met at least, and who he said in the previous video, treated him kindly. And yet, to appease a mob of degenerate leftist scumbags, Joey just threw his idol under the bus, condemned him for all the, quote, horrible, horrible things that man has done, and apologized to all the people smearing both him and his hero as racists. I mean, it's one of the most pathetic displays you will ever see. It also accomplished nothing, except to make everything worse. The outraged leftists responded to Joey's apology by saying that it wasn't genuine, it wasn't good enough, it doesn't change the fact that he already revealed himself to be a racist. None of them accepted the apology or invited him back into their fold. And that's the way these things always go, of course, which anyone who's been alive and semi-sentient since 2020 should already know. Joey Swoll has certainly been alive for the past 5 years, so I don't know, he's another one whose sentience may be up for debate. I just don't know how. I hate to do in the current year, how could you do this? But seriously, in the year 2025, how could you not know how this works by now? Now, shortly after that apology, seeing how poorly it was received, Joey came out with his third response. He tried explaining himself. When that didn't work, he tried groveling and apologizing. When that didn't work, he gave up completely. Here's what he wrote, quote, all the good I've done, all the people I've helped, all for nothing. I've truly hope all the people I've inspired do great things in their life and pay it forward to help others and carry on my message. But no matter how much good you do, people just wait for a reason to hate you and tear you down. You either die a hero or live long enough to be the villain. Thank you for your support. I am done. So this is the final stage of a self-destructive meltdown, begging for pity, quoting Batman, and then quitting social media, right? It's a story as old as time and a terrible way to go out. Not that Joey's actually going anywhere. He'll probably be back tomorrow, I'm sure. But even so, this was a deeply pathetic performance. It brings me no joy to say any of this, by the way. I think Joey seems like a nice guy. I'm sure he is, but I mean, as men, we got to call this stuff out. And apologizing like that to the mob is inexcusable. And when you put yourself in the public eye and you're profiting immensely from it and enjoying the riches that come with it, when you do that, you have a responsibility as a man to respond with strength and moral courage in these moments. And if you don't respond that way, you deserve to get called out, especially a guy who his whole shtick is to call other people out, many of whom deserve to get called out. He's posted hundreds of videos calling out random people. Well, now it's his turn. Now, if rather than listening to whichever crisis PR scam artist told him to issue that apology statement, Joey had instead solicited advice from someone who actually has experience successfully dealing with left-wing cancel mobs, someone like, for instance, me, I could have spared him all this heartache. I would have told him that 98.5% of the time when people are mad at you on the internet, the best way to deal with it is to not deal with it. Ignore it. Say nothing. Pretend it's not happening. Don't look at your mentions. Don't search your name. Don't read your DMs. Just keep on posting like nothing is wrong. Post through it, as the wise sages of old have always said. In 98.5% of cases, the outrage will subside on its own in 24 to 48 hours. I mean, think of it like a mild rash, a case of contact dermatitis. It's a minor nuisance. It's not serious. It will go away in a day or two. A week from now, it will be ancient history. A month from now, the outrage will be so far in the past that any record of it will be lost in the sands of time, recorded only by hieroglyphics on the wall of a pyramid. That's what happens if you ignore it most of the time. Now, in very rare cases, the outrage may last for longer. It takes on a mind of its own. It snowballs. 3 days later, people are still talking about it. A day after that, they're somehow even angrier than they were when it all started. This is rare, okay? As someone who's, I'm kind of, at this point, I'm a sort of a connoisseur of mob outrage, having experienced all of its various varieties and flavors. I can tell you that this kind, where like 4 days later, it's even worse. This happens this happens to me maybe like once or twice a year, probably even just once. It's a rare occurrence. And the truth is that even in those cases, you can still ignore it. You come back 4 days later, you're like, oh, wow, they're still going on about this? What you could do is just say, okay, and leave for a week. Don't announce it. Don't announce it in a self-pitying way. I'm leaving. I'm done with social. Just go do something else. Don't even check. Keep ignoring it. Get offline completely if you need to. Come back in a week and pretend it never happened. You can have a bunch of people in your comments. The first time you come back, you start posting. A bunch of people in the comments are going to go, are you going to comment on this? Are you going to comment? There's actually a certain satisfaction in just ignoring it. You're like, no, I'm not going to comment. I don't have to. I don't have to bark on command. You need to comment on this. No, I don't. I don't have to. I don't have to do anything. I don't care what kind of comment you want to hear. Take that. But if you really feel like you have to address it, then address it by looking directly into the camera and telling your critics to kiss your ass. Let them know they're a bunch of whiny, ridiculous children and you don't care how they feel. Now, if you do this, this will probably set them off even more. The mob will become more hysterical with rage, but that will be their last gasp because they'll know they can't break you. They're not going to win. They're not going to be able to extract the apology. So after screaming impotently for another day at most, they'll pack it up and go searching for a new target. Either of these strategies, ignoring the mob or telling them to kiss your ass, would have been a fine way to approach this. But you did the one thing, Joey, that you must never, ever, ever do under any circumstance. You apologized. You validated the performative, fake, manipulative outrage of these cry bullies by kneeling before them and bowing your head in submission. You gave them what they want. You didn't just negotiate with the terrorists, you surrendered to them entirely. And again, you did this in the year 2025 at a time when the woke mob is weaker and more reviled than it's ever been. A time when you could have issued a gloriously defiant statement, doubling and tripling down. You could have come out in your Hulk Hogan costume, and issued a statement telling these people you don't care what any of them think. You apologize for nothing. In fact, you're glad that they're upset and crying. They're claiming they're not going to watch your content anymore. Go ahead. I don't even want you to watch my content, you losers. You could have said something like that, and you would have had legions of people coming to your defense and celebrating you for your boldness and courage. Instead, you caved. And it's interesting and revealing that we see this pitiful display from a fitness influencer and gym bro, a guy who looks like he could bench press my house. What we see here is the difference between performative strength and true masculine strength. It's good for men to work out, exercise, build muscle, take care of their bodies. I fully support that. I think it's great for guys to go to the gym. You should. But it's all for nothing. It's all for show. It's pure vanity. It is pure vanity. It is no different than a woman getting Botox. If you're stacking muscle on top of muscle while you have a weak spirit and weak character. Okay? If all that muscle is concealing a soft, weak character, then it doesn't mean anything. It's pure vanity. It's just appearance and nothing more. Ultimately, a man is defined by not, how much he can bench press, but by how he stands up or if he stands up in the kinds of situation that Joey Swoll found himself in. Can you look these manipulative brats in the face with their crocodile tears streaming down their faces and tell them in no uncertain terms that you will never bow to them, you will never give them what they want? That's what a man does. There are moments that define a man. And I'll tell you something, as much as I think it's great to go to the gym, those moments rarely happen at a gym. When they do happen, do you rise to the moment or do you shrink away? Joey Swoll shrank. And that is why he is today, sorry to say, canceled. That'll do it for the show today. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Talk to you tomorrow. Have a great day. Godspeed.
Today on The Ben Shapiro Show, the Trump EPA radically revises regulations over greenhouse gas emissions, and we're joined by Energy Secretary Chris Wright to discuss the energy revolution. Cory Booker gets performative on the Senate floor, and the New York Times admits yet another horrifying screw-up in its Gaza coverage. That's today on The Ben Shapiro Show. Give it a listen.